Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Orisha Bowers, and I will be working with you to center our conversation today. First of all, we thank you so much for coming out to join us today. We invite you to bring your full self to the conversation. We invite you to avoid multitasking. We invite you to be here now. If it's available to you, I'd like for you to either pause your camera or close your eyes. And join me in taking 3 collective breaths. First breath in through your nose and out your mouth. Second breath in through your nose and out your mouth. Third breath in through your nose and out your mouth. Now we come together as one collective unit across this universe, celebrating each other's humanity, celebrating each other's wholeness, fullness, and sacred self. Help us to get what we need. Help us to release those things that no longer serve us. Ashe, and I am complete.
Thank you so much, Orisha and Jose, for starting us off. And thank you to each of you joining us here this afternoon. My name is Erica Poellot, and I am the Director of Faith and Harm Reduction. We are thrilled to welcome you to the launch of the Spirit and Harm Reduction Toolkit, and more broadly, Faith and Harm Reduction. For those who are not familiar with Faith and Harm Reduction, we are a collaborative project of the National Harm Reduction Coalition and Judson Memorial Church. As a national collective of faith and community leaders, we mobilize spirit, connection, and power in partnership with people who use drugs. And we have arrived at the following mission, which guides the spirit of our work. Faith and Harm Reduction co-creates a justice movement which connects people who use drugs, people who do sex work, and communities of faith through the development of harm reduction-centered spiritual resources, ritual support, and spiritual care. Partnership with the leadership of people who use drugs and people who do sex work is very much the heart and soul of our work. This event was designed by our community and leadership as an opportunity to practice together the ways of truth-telling, mutual aid, and soul care in community with one another. We have an incredible roster of artists, organizers, and spirited leaders today, including Reverend Sarah Hal Miller, Jose Martinez, and the Reverend Dr. Orisha Bowers from National Harm Reduction Coalition. Jess Tilley, New England Users Union, HRH 413, Harm Reduction Works, and Urban Survivors Union. Albie Park, HRH 413, and Harm Reduction Works. Elizabeth Brewington with the North Carolina Council of Churches, and Reverend Michelle Mathis, Olive Branch Ministry. In addition to our presenters, today's ritual experience in the Spirit of Harm Reduction Toolkit have been made possible by an incredible chorus of support, including Open Society Foundations, New York City Department of Health, an Incredible Family Foundation, and others. However, the biggest thank you is owed to Faith and Harm Reduction's National Leadership Collective, who vision and shape our movement building, and they include Jose Martinez, Marilyn Reyes, Reverend Sarah Hal Miller, Blythe Barnow, Terrell Jones, Reverend Dr. Orisha Bowers, Chris Purnell, Elizabeth Brewington, Michelle Mathis, Reverend M. Barkley, Jess Tilley, Louise Vincent, Albie Park, Malika Lamont, Katrina Johnson, Kimberly Buck, Robert Suarez, Nina Strakarts, Jeff Cochran, Hill Brown, and Dr. Andrew Bell. Today's event, as well as the toolkit, is very much a reflection of their spirit, their love, and their commitment to our collective belief that liberation is possible together. So thank you. And to all of you joining us in this movement here today, we welcome you. And with this, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again. My name is Sarah Howell-Miller. My pronouns are she, her, and I am an ordained minister in the United Methodist Church. I currently live and work in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. In addition to my work at Green Street United Methodist Church, which has the pleasure of being a host site for our syringe service program, I am the Faith and Harm Reduction Program Coordinator with the National Harm Reduction Coalition. And I'm grateful to be here with this powerful roster of harm reduction ministers and with all of you today. So today's event is the second of two events marking the launch of our new resource, Spirit of Harm Reduction, a toolkit for communities of faith facing overdose. This toolkit has been a labor of love on the part of our Faith and Harm Reduction Leadership Collective and many partners and contributors who have shared resources, writing, rituals, and more. The Spirit of Harm Reduction Toolkit makes the case for why faith communities need harm reduction, educates on issues related to substance use and racialized drug policy, provides diverse ritual resources, some of which you will experience today, stories the harm reduction movement with sermons, personal narratives, poetry, and more, and gives faith communities concrete action steps to supporting harm reduction practices and policies. The toolkit is now available on the National Harm Reduction Coalition's website, and we will soon have a PDF version available for download from Faith and Harm Reduction. And we want to stress, we invite you to explore this document, but we want to stress that the toolkit is a living document. We plan to continue to add on in terms of content, update materials as needed. And we hope that this approach will model for our participants and followers the reality that flexibility and responsiveness to reality are required in any justice movement, and that when we know better, we do better. So we invite you to explore the Spirit of Harm Reduction Toolkit and check back often for updates. And we will send a recap email to participants in this event, both with the recording and with links to the toolkit and our website and all of that. But today's event focuses on one important aspect of how Faith and Harm Reduction seeks to equip the harm reduction movement and faith leaders seeking to be allies to people who use drugs and people who do sex work, and to people who use drugs and people who do sex work themselves, and that is the aspect of ritual. So if you missed our conversation with Toolkit contributors last Wednesday, we'll send that out to you later. But in it, two of our leadership collective members, Reverend M. Barclay, who I believe is on the call today, and Blythe Barnow, gave a profound and practical overview of why ritual matters. And in that part of the conversation, Reverend M. Barclay said, ritual, at its best, can be a practice of resistance. And so this is what we hope that this Human Rights Day ritual experience with people who use drugs can do, to be a practice of resistance against the forces of dehumanization so constantly at work in the lives of people in marginalized communities. We offer this ritual space as a practice of resistance against any attitude, policy, convention, or form of treatment, however well intended, that diminishes the humanity and agency of people who use drugs and people who do sex work. We offer this ritual space as a practice of resistance against a culture of silence and shame that isolates people when they most need support. We offer this ritual space as a practice of resistance against anyone or anything that robs people who use drugs of their rights, their worth, or their place in beloved community. So in today's event, you will hear from faith leaders, from people who use drugs and drug user organizers, and other harm reductionists. You will be invited to participate in rituals of naming our struggles and claiming our full shared humanity. And you will be asked to see and respond to the full humanity of people and communities who have been pushed aside, especially in this COVID-19 pandemic. So we hope that you will leave this virtual space both challenged and rejuvenated, both more willing to sit with the nuances of your own humanity and more ready to take action in support of human rights. Thank you so much again for being with us today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jess Tilley.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I was not prepared for a second there to go first, but I'm Jess Tilley. I'm the co-founder of HRH 413, Grassroots Harm Reduction Outreach and Services, co-creator of Harm Reduction Works, which is an amazing self-help meeting. Shameless plug there if anyone wants to check it out. Go to harmreduction.works. And I am the founder, executive director of the New England Users Union. I'm on the leadership team for Urban Survivors Union. But most importantly, I'm a woman who uses drugs. And I have no shame. I was made to feel ashamed, and the worst of that was I was made to feel that I wasn't a woman. I didn't have human rights as a woman because I chose to inject a substance into my body. And 25 years into this movement, I still have to ground myself at times and remind myself that just because I do use drugs, it does not take away my human rights. It does not take away the fact that I am a woman, how I define myself as a woman. And I want to talk shortly today about the sacred feminine, the divine feminine energy, as we speak about ritual and human rights, because for me, it's been a grounding force. It's been the alchemy that connects me to my fellow man, women, non-binary. I want to say that because I have been yelled at when I say sacred feminine. Sacred feminine is an energy. It does nothing to do with gender. It is in all of us. It is the balance between light and dark, good and evil, wrong and right. It's beautiful. I'm going to share a couple of the characteristics of feminine energy and to define divine feminine energy for people who are not familiar with what I'm talking about. Simply enough, it's the aspect of self associated with creation, intuition, community, sensuality, and collaboration. And this is why it relates to me as a harm reductionist. And I think it relates to all of us as a harm reductionist as well. It's about collaboration. There are many characteristics. As I said, I could go through all of them. I'm going to pick about 4 of them, especially talking about passive resistance, as Sarah mentioned, resistance. And just give me 1 second because I'm pulling it up. And of course, now it's freezing. Okay. So as I mentioned, number 1 is creativity. It is the balance, again, that allows us to manifest the divine feminine in all process of our creation and creativity. And one thing Albie and I talk about, Albie Park, who's my work husband, is how we need more art and ritual in what we create as harm reductionists. Warrior spirit. I can't talk enough about the warrior spirit that's within all of us. I believe we have to have a warrior spirit to do the work that we do as sex workers, as people who use drugs. And when I say warrior, I don't mean fighting. I mean just allowing ourselves to meet the challenge of living in a world, in a community where we are not accepted as basic humans, or we're not allowed to have basic human rights. The warrior spirit is what allows me to get up each morning and look in the mirror, even though I'm told I'm not a good person because I use drugs, that I'm told I'm not a good person because I help people who use drugs. That warrior spirit is what keeps me alive. And I try to cultivate and nourish and do a lot of self-care around that warrior spirit. It allows me to kind of align with my true self, my true nature. And to me, that's like the ultimate definition of what it is to be feminine. Deep sense of justice, balance, and morality. I don't think I have to really go into define that, how we feel as social justice activists, as harm reductionists. Very simply put, it's divine feminine. Divine feminine has a strong sense of justice, balance, and morality. It is always trying to look past what seems to be the truth of the matter. I think so many of us in our harm reduction world right now, there has been a lot of cancel culture, a lot of calling out. And I think we need to look beyond that and look inside of what we really believe true justice and balance is for us as a community. And passive resistance. I think people hear passive and they think it means giving up or being submissive. It's not. It's about, it means avoiding confrontation, dissolving conflicts before they escalate. Historically, women have always been the ones who kind of in society are the ones who are supposed to, and why I say supposed to, it's like we are expected to not allow things to become violent or aggressive. And that has been viewed as being passive. It's not. It's about being a peacekeeper. It's about how the ancient ones, women were, the medicinal, the cure. We were the curers. We were the healers. And to me, that's about the balance of resisting anger and violence and helping to heal a community. Stronger awareness of thoughts and feelings, really being in touch with your energy and being aware of where your energy is coming from and your emotions. Again, that's what the balance is. Like, why, if we are feeling so full of anger, like, where is that coming from? What have we done to let go of our light? How can we, like, heal the wounds of femininity? We've been taught in the culture that, as women, we are objects. We are enslaved by the thoughts that the dominant male culture has put on us, and we have to let go of those preconceived notions. Like, I find myself getting on Zoom meetings and being like, oh, I haven't had my eyebrows done, and my hair really does look crazy right now, which is why I'm not on camera. But, shedding that, letting that go, and being aware of, like, what is it in society? How have we been wounded? The feminine wound that resides deep in all of us. How do we cure this? And finally, having a many-sided personality. When I've talked about this before, people are like, what do you mean? Do you have multiple personalities? But what it means is we as women, we carry many roles. We're mother, we're sister, we're healer, we are wife, we are lover. But most of all, we are the divine feminine. And, it is okay to have those many different faces. And then, as a woman who uses drugs, as a woman who has done sex work, I'm still allowed to carry all those titles. I'm still allowed to immerse myself in the ritual of being a woman. And I consider it to be a gift to be able to hold the sacred feminine side of me and to share it with others. And I have to learn to continuously, this is why it's a good check-in and ritual for me, daily basis, is to keep that in balance and to remember it's a gift that has been given to me and that I can offer this to my community to be able to heal, to resist, to demand that I have human rights, and so does my community. Again, major themes here for me, like I said, are resistance, being able to create, being able to love. I believe we are in a time right now where we're in such an unbalanced world that we need to harness this energy and come together. Every day, again, is a ritual for me when it involves harm reduction, when it involves working with people who use drugs. I'm so thankful that my path has brought me to this place that I can share this with you. And that I'm so honored to be among the people that I am, and in this group especially has been has what has gotten me through this hellish year. I know we've all been in this hellish year, but I'm just thankful. And with that, I'm going to close.
Thank you so much, Jess. And I'm incredibly grateful for your warrior heart. And to be able to know and be known by you and work alongside you. So thank you so much. At this point, I would love to invite Albie Park.
Hi, everybody. So this is Casper, he's been making a lot of noise. So anyway, this piece is very brief, and it's called The Way Through. Oppression teaches, resilience learns. The lesson to survive the apocalypse: choose values wisely to save humanity. Community organizes around kindness and compassion or conflict. To seek out enemies to fight, make enemies. Value oppression to make community. To come together to love is to expand. Power to save the world. To love the enemy and not die together is the magic apocalypse brings. The way to survive is always together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Albie. Together clearly is the only way forward. And with this, I would love to invite Jose Martinez.
How you doing? Yeah, and I was thinking a couple of days, I knew I was gonna have to say something today, and it's like, it's kind of nervous. Like, how do you paint the picture to people who, aren't there to see what you're trying to say, and but today's topic is human rights, and just what I've been seeing through COVID, and even before COVID, but through COVID is just, it just taught me a lot. I'm Puerto Rican. Me and Hiawatha have a joke where I say, if I get stopped by police, I'll be good because of my skin complexion. And then he'd say, yeah, but then you open your mouth and it's over, right? And the reason I say this is that with that, I understand the privilege that I hold off of just my complexion, but then that privilege is taken away because of where I come from and the background that I come from. But, through COVID, a lot of our people depend on harm reduction agencies, and a lot of other agencies too, that's not harm reduction. And, COVID stripped that away from them. What makes a man perfect, as perfect as he's going to be, those options was taken from them. The option to sleep, the option to shower, the option to have somebody, hug you, because that's what harm reduction agencies do. Sometimes harm reduction agencies are the only conversation, that, our people get. Through COVID, I saw that the city took away, our people's garbage cans, all services, drop-in centers, banks, and coffee shops where our people frequent to charge their phones, places where they used to shower, to eat. All of this was taken away from them, and I was part of that community at one time. I was homeless. I was just like everybody. I was in too deep on, on drugs. And it wasn't because I wanted to be. It's because of where I'm from. Our options is limited. And usually the options that are presented to us are, they're actions that keep us in the hole we in or dig us deeper. One of those, is drugs. But with the love of Marilyn, Erica, Dimitri, not judging me like everybody else was judging me, that gave me, it gave me the opportunity to look at myself different. When you're raised in a certain environment where they say, oh, you was in a group home, so you're definitely going to amount to nothing, definitely going to be going to prison. All of those stigmas, and, it does stuff to people's minds. Societal norms does stuff to people's minds. And then when the little bit that you do have gets taken away from you, it's like, where do we go from here? All I hear is agencies speak, hey, the state hasn't given us this money. Funding. This is all I hear is funding. Funding this, funding that. I really hear people speak on how everything was taken from our people. You go to the South Bronx right now, and there's literally feces on the floor in the encampment of our people because bathrooms is closed, harm reduction agencies are closed, needles everywhere because sanitation, even before COVID, didn't do needle pickup. All of this was, the needle has weight pickups, and needle pickup was done by harm reduction agencies who had to limit their hours too, due to COVID. So it's like, you expect someone to do better for themselves, but the options they need to better themselves is not there. Through this time, people were saying, well, those people, why don't they go into the shelter? One, the shelters are closed to any new members, certain shelters. And then the ones that are there for our people there's no protocols, no safety precautions, no nothing. Everybody's bunched into one place. Then move to another hotel where now we have people that are protesting against having people living in hotels. Don't got nowhere to go. You expect somebody to be clean and look for a job when there's no showers, no porta potties, and none of that. No ways to keep themselves clean. And that hurts, because, this is all of our rights. We have a right to smell good. We have a right to eat. We have a right to what anybody has, and it's painful. It's painful looking at that. I always think to myself, like, yo, that could have been me. Like where I'm at today is the most ability I've had in my whole life. I'm 33 years old. And I just think 3 short years ago, I was there, and that could easily be me. It could have been me. There was a time, even through all the love that, I was being shown, it was like, it still didn't get to me. I always feel like that's a blessing, like that. I actually, like, something clicked in my mind where I was like, hey, it's time, shape up. I'm glad it did, because it was so long that I was like, I wasn't listening to nothing, because I would take every message like a grain of salt, like everybody else told me. Hey, you need a rehab. You need, you're nothing, if you're using drugs. And, the whole time, I had it good. I had good in me. I always showed love to everybody. Little bit that I had, close to nothing, I had no problem giving it to people. And that's good. That's goodness, if you ask me. That's a golden heart. And that's basically what everybody in our community is like. There's stigma that, people living in the streets and, drug users, they don't love each other. But we have statistics like the number one people who are reversing overdoses are people who use drugs, saving their friends. Golden hearts all over, but getting the short end of the stick. So just seeing that is just like so painful. And, a lot of awareness needs to be brought to it, because, we could all do better. That includes the people who are, living that life. If we just show each other that love, if that love is shown to them, that hug. I don't know if Marilyn's on this call, but I speak on this a lot where, when I was in the streets and I was asleep, I was stinky. I smelled like, oh man. I remember Marilyn giving me hugs. I remember Marilyn, like, me telling Marilyn, like, hey, I stink right now, what she's going with me, giving me a hug. And, she's like, I don't care, you're my baby, come over here. It was stuff like that. And the reason why it affected me so much was because I was sleeping on the trains. I've been woken up with hands and feet before. To go from sleeping on a train where somebody's like, yo, you stink, you need to move, or putting hands on you just because you're sleeping on a train, to going to someone who's hugging you and talking to you, right? That was like so important, having those conversations, because the only conversations I would have was with myself, right? If we show that to everybody, it'll give them that opportunity to look at their health and dignify themselves, and that's what we need to do. It's all about love, That's what it says in the Bible. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. And what you put in yourself doesn't defile you, but what comes out. you know, and that's what we need to incorporate for our people, you know, so we could all be better. You know, that's what I got to say right now.
Thank you so much, Jose. I think Sarah, when she introduced today's event, she talked about some of the most powerful ministers she knew being the ones who were speaking today. And I have to say that Jose, you, Marilyn, Terrell, the range of folks who I know are still out on the streets weekly during COVID, ensuring that our people are connected with the love and the dignity and compassion that they deserve. So I just really want to uplift that and thank you for your ministry. At this point, I would love to introduce one of my other favorite ministers, and that's the Reverend Michelle Mathis.
Hello, I apologize. It seems that my puppies have decided to be vocal at this particular moment. Just want to say how wonderful it is that we're gathered today as family. I want to offer up a naming ceremony, but of a different sort. Often when we get together as Faith and Harm Reduction, we offer up the names of those that we have lost to the overdose crisis. Today, I want us to take a moment to acknowledge our full humanity and who we are as whole and holy people, and then to offer up as sacrifice the challenges that we are experiencing that prevent us from connecting with our humanity. Spirit of love, God of all names and beyond all names, we gather today in your presence, which joins our hearts and spirits in the divine. We give ourselves permission to be real, to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be as we are created as we are created to be, holy and wholly human. We have dreams and desires and destinies. We have callings that lead us to love and to serve, and sometimes to lose sight of our own humanity while doing so. We gather today to acknowledge our humanity and to affirm it. We affirm our bodies, the breath in our lungs, the loveliness of our skin, the warmth of our touch, the beauty of our smile, and the brilliance of our mind. We affirm our tenderness, our compassion towards others, but also the importance of compassion for ourselves, forgiving ourselves when we fall short, showing grace to ourselves without shame or excuse. We affirm our dreams, the ones that carry us daily, the ones that we have learned from and moved on from, the ones that we are living, and the ones that have yet to be formed in our heart. We affirm our limitations. It is healthy to set boundaries, to not judge our self-worth by our procrastination or our productivity, and to remember that we are not saviors. We affirm our roots, the path of our ancestors, where they trod, and those that they lead us down now, our families of origin, and those we have invited into our sacred space of created family. We affirm our stories, the messy and the tragic, the funny and the magical, the chapters that only we are allowed to read. We affirm our resilience and strength, our abilities to keep on keeping on, to bounce back, and to shoulder our siblings as we affirm each other. We affirm our hearts, the center of love, acceptance, emotion, vulnerability, and kindness. We gather to honor our humanity, we gather in this safe space to remember that it is okay to be wholly human. I invite you now to take a moment to breathe and to focus on that breath. I also invite you to unmute your microphone and to offer up a single word of what challenges you in connecting you with your humanity.
Trust.
Stigma.
Fear.
Weariness.
Fear. Pain.
Shame.
Fear.
Anxiety.
Isolation.
Shame.
Impatience.
Stress.
Margins.
Trauma.
Weariness.
Misunderstanding.
Assumption.
Judgment.
Spirit of love, we offer these challenges as sacrifice. Remind us that it is not only okay to be human, it is something to revel in and rejoice in. For it is our humanity that allows true connection with others. Remind us to speak our truth, to commit to self-care for ourselves, to reclaim our strength, and to simply be holy and wholly human. Amen.
Amen. And with this, thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you, everyone, for your vulnerability and sharing. At this time, I would love to welcome Orisha and Tiffany.
In case you have fallen, dreams and visions shattered, you're all broken inside. You don't have to stay in the shit that you're in. The fire wants to put you back together again. Oh, the fire wants to put you back together again. In case your situation turned upside down, when all that you accomplished is now on the ground, you don't have to stay in the shelter you need. I want to put you back together again. Oh, the Father wants to put you back together again. You the Father wants to put you together again. Oh, the potter wants to put you back together again. The potter wants to put you back together again. Oh, the potter wants to put you back together again.
Thank you so much. I know that was an answer to prayers for many of us who, on most all of our leadership calls and other gatherings, plead with Orisha to share her gift of music with us. So thank you both, Orisha and Tiffany, for that. And with this, I would like to transition and invite Elizabeth Brewington to join.
Thank you. So next we have our statement of humanity. And when we were discussing this call, I was reminded I come from an Episcopalian background, and every week we have a part of the service where we have a statement of confession and we recite the Nicene Creed as a community. And what I love about that ritual is it is all of us coming together and speaking as one voice in one community. And so with that hope in mind, can I invite you all to read this statement? I think we have it. Sarah, do we have it on the PowerPoint?
I'll put it in the chat.
Cool. I invite you to say this statement of humanity with me and speak it out into the universe. So I'm going to get started while Sarah is putting it in the chat. We are all human. All of us are worthy simply because we are human. Humanity does not have to be accepted in order to be valid, but to live into our full humanity, we must learn to accept others. On this Human Rights Day, we acknowledge that people who use drugs and people who do sex work are often treated as less than human, and that this dehumanization becomes justification for taking away their rights. We reject any rhetoric, whether legal, medical, social, or religious, that animalizes, pathologizes, and debases people who use drugs and people who do sex work. We declare that human worth is in no way compromised by what we put in or do with our bodies. We are defined by being created, not by what we create or produce. We affirm that as humans, we are all interconnected, and that harm to one is harm to all. In a world that categorizes and separates us by valuing our humanity differently, we remember that the only way we survive is together. Simply the fact that we draw breath now shows us that the universe deems us worthy to life. This truth leads us to work to preserve and restore the breath of people experiencing overdose, of Black people who can't breathe in the crush of white supremacy, of COVID patients whose breath is stolen and whose effects are wide-ranging and devastating for marginalized community, including people who use drugs and people who do sex work. We know that being human is often uncomfortable, and we call on faith community leaders to make space for that discomfort, to stand in the gap with us, and to recognize that discomfort is not always a sign that something is wrong, but may simply mean that we are living in the real world with real people. We commit to honoring the expertise of people with lived experience, to seeking to understand and mitigate the effects of trauma, to calling out and calling in all who intentionally or unintentionally participate in a system that perpetuates harm. We commit to resisting the reflex to sacrifice the humanity of people who are different from us on the altar of our illusions of safety and order. We stand with people who use drugs and people who do sex work, who claim and uphold their humanity, their own rights, and we invite all to commit to a solidarity beyond caretaking, a solidarity that comes from, is made of, and then leads to liberty, love, and action.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I believe we will be making this available on the website, both faithandharmreduction.org and harmreduction.org. So please, if you are interested in visiting these words again, we hope that you will. Central to our work as Faith and Harm Reduction is solidarity with people who use drugs and people who do sex work. We are currently working with the Urban Survivors Union to support a forthcoming statement calling for a moratorium on the firing of frontline peer and harm reduction workers. USU recognizes that COVID-19 has presented unique and devastating challenges to marginalized communities, and that the role of employment, already one of the most important harm reduction inventions for frontline workers, is even more vital during this pandemic. In anticipation of USU's public ask for needed support from employers, especially harm reduction organizations, we offer the broad strokes of this ask as allies and accomplices to the work of harm reduction in this challenging time. USU calls for a moratorium on the firing of frontline peer workers, workers with lived experience of drug use, and especially those in active drug use, for the duration of the pandemic. The call is for a review of peer workers' rights throughout the history of the harm reduction movement, a restructuring of employment opportunities for people vulnerable to structural violence, a deepening of cultural competency on the part of allies, and a fundamental shift in understanding the needs of people with lived experience of drug use as workers. USU understands that stigma, shame, and isolation kill more readily than drug use itself, and their forthcoming statement is a call for liberation from oppressive systems that tokenize or fetishize drug users' experience while failing to understand and take into consideration the actual needs and gifts of people who use drugs. Today, as Faith and Harm Reduction, we call attention to this unfolding advocacy and pause to make space for hard truths about drug use and the war on people to be drugs, the war on people who use drugs, and give an opportunity to name some of these. As a collective prayer, I invite you to join me in sharing perhaps one of the most compelling of recent and frequent prayers that I have uttered, which is holy shit. I invite you to join me in sharing whatever holy shit you are carrying for yourself, for a loved one, for our community. I would invite those in chat or spoken, while remembering to respect the privacy of those unable to consent and know that we will not share the chat as part of this. So please feel protected in that. So I invite you to join any holy shit you want us to lift up. I'm going to say holy shit for an over 60% increase in overdose fatalities here in New York City, and 74, I believe upward of 74% of those are among beloved people of color.
I'm going to second that. We just got our overdose rates here in Massachusetts. Department of Public Health is praising, that we've dropped 4%. They're not talking about the rise of 17% of people of color who are overdosing, and that needs to be challenged. So holy shit.
Holy shit, isolation is killing people.
Holy shit, it is hard to tell the truth about behaviors that are stigmatized and demonized, and holy shit, that secrecy around drug use puts people in very real danger.
Holy shit, we have white supremacist violence in our street, gunmen on rooftops, and unhoused people and people that use drugs, especially vulnerable to the violence of these people that are roaming our streets and people of color. Holy shit.
Just to lift up some that's coming in the chat. Holy shit, first responders are focusing more on COVID than on overdose. Holy shit, it's 2020 and we're still seeing LGBTQ plus teens experiencing bullying and depression leading to suicide. Holy shit, 3,000 plus people dying a day from COVID. Holy shit, the so-called recovery community is still perpetuating stigma of people who use drugs.
Holy shit, we got Trump out of the White House. That was a happy holy shit.
God, holy shit, people still believe we can pray all of this away. Holy shit, people are complaining about lack of funding and neglecting communities in need. Holy shit, all black lives still matter. Holy shit, harm reduction works is growing. That's a good one.
Holy shit, we got somebody hired in county level government in King County to work on making spaces safer for supervised drug use.
In the chat, we've got holy shit, we're still dealing with the other pandemic, HIV. Holy shit, it takes a lot for people to say I'm sorry. We've got holy shit, people need some cat loving or maybe dog loving depending on your poison.
And yes, holy shit, let's decriminalize all drugs and sex work. Let each of these holy shits be seen and heard, and know that you each are seen and heard. We are witnesses to one another's lives and the knowing that we are divine. Please join me in lifting up the prayers that have been spoken and not in this moment, in whatever name, for all that is love and just and resonates for you. May the divine bless and keep us, especially those who have been wounded by an epidemic of silence and inaction, whose treatment consists of criminalization and condemnation, not compassion, who can't breathe, smothered by stigma, shame, and white supremacy, whose communities of faith have yet to bring them an expansive grace. May the divine allow the divine's face to shine upon us, on those on the front lines, persistently, consistently proclaiming worth and love, on those advocating change for loved ones lost, advocating change for their own selves, demanding change for those who have suffered decades of harm that could have been ameliorated by attention and action, and on those of us here today in this important space, and especially on those not here with us, because they are perceived to be other, hard to organize, or less than. May the divine lift us up so that our sacred spaces, our tables, these rooms are more full with people with lived experience, Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color, people whose leadership and wisdom will transform us all. So that your gracious and abundant mercy fall upon us, so that we are lifted up into hope which fosters justice and healing, and grant us peace, that peace which passes understanding, a peace in liberation and love.
And just to thank you so much for joining us. That is what we have for this ritual experience for today. We're so grateful that you all joined. So grateful to all of the powerful harm reduction ministers who have shared and spoken and led today, and to our leadership collective who has supported the planning of this event and the development of the toolkit. We just want to invite you to continue to stay connected with Faith and Harm Reduction. You can visit us on our website, faithandharmreduction.org, and join our mailing list and contact us for ways to get involved. Just to note, someone was asking in the chat about a way to approach drug activity and sex work in their neighborhood without stigmatizing people, and that's a great example of some of the many things that members of our collective may have expertise on and can help you think through and work through. So if you are maybe new to harm reduction or have a particular issue in your community that you want help working with, there is a wealth of wisdom and experience within this group, and we would love to work with you. So please do reach out to us, and we look forward to being in touch moving forward. Erica, do we have anything else that I've forgotten?
I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you all. Again, this recording will be sent out to all of you as a YouTube link soon, and we'll include the link to the Toolkit Contributors conversation last week as well, in case you didn't have the chance to join that, or if you want to relive some of that beautiful content. So thank you all again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.